I'm Bob Harris of Decorative Concrete Institute. Welcome to Duramin's training and educational series for industrial and decorative flooring systems. We're back on our panel in which we're going to be installing Param 6000 self-leveling overlay. And what we're doing is we're picking up the residual sand from where we did a sand broadcast into the epoxy. So we want to go ahead and sweep and vacuum all of the sand off. You remove it, and then what I'll do is I'll run a floor scraper over that to make sure there's no burrs, and then we're ready for the mixing and the install of the Param 6000. We're getting ready to mix our Param 6000 self-leveling overlay. The mix ratio on this is 4.75 quarts up to 5 quarts of water. And the reason for the variance, it depends on the humidity and the ambient and substrate temperature. So that's the range. Also, we're going to be using the Duramin color packs for the Param. We're going to be using Kindle Gray. Check with Duramin's technical documents in terms of the mix ratios. For this video, we are going to be using one pigment pack per bag. So in the bucket here, we're getting ready to mix 2 bags of Param 6000, which means we're going to put 2 color pigment packs into the water. We're going to spin it, okay? And then while he's continuing to spin the drill, we go ahead and start adding the Param 6000. The reason for that is we don't want to spin it and then walk away for several minutes because the pigment could float to the bottom and segregate. So it's important to keep it mixing while you're dumping the cement. We've mixed the Param 6000 for approximately 3 minutes. Now it's time to pour. If this was an actual project, we would have a couple of guys lifting the barrels and pouring a ribbon out. If you're pouring by yourself, don't use your back. Just dump the material over. So I'm not lifting. I'm letting the material kind of flow by itself here. And then I just scoot it back and pour like this. You can see the consistency of the material. It's a very flowable mix. I'll just use a small hand trowel just to get it into the corners and let it do its thing. And then I'll use the gauge rake. Once again, we've pigmented this, which is a nice color. And once we've done the finishing on this, we're going to broadcast some glass just simply as a decorative alternative. And then the following day, we're going to come in and we're going to polish this, polish the Param. All right, so I'm going to use the gauge rake, which has been preset at 3/8 of an inch thick. When you're polishing Param, it's always going to be a minimum of 3/8, and depending on the floor, you might need a little bit of an additional lift if the floor is out of level, for example. In extreme cases, if the floor is significantly out of level, you may have to pre-level first, and then come over the top of it with the Param 6000, which is polishable. All right. Go ahead, more. Okay. Good deal. This is what's referred to as a smoothing paddle, and smoothing is a very important process. What we're trying to do is just get it to lay down flat, and there's a definite technique to how you smooth. So you'll see when I head in this direction, I actually angle the smoother slightly in this direction, and then when I turn, I do it in the opposite direction and angle it this way. And by angling it like that, it forces a wave of material to be pulled with you. So it looks something like this right here. As a decorative option, you can broadcast exotic or decorative aggregates into the surface like crushed glass. The glass comes in different sizes, 0s, 1s, 2s, and up to 3s. Obviously 3s are going to be very large. What you want to try to shoot for is whatever thickness of overlay you're pouring, in this case is 3/8 thick, you would want to try to get a glass that's relatively close to that thickness. What happens is if you use a glass that's really fine, like a 0 or a 1, and you do it too soon, it just goes down to the bottom, and it doesn't stay suspended. So when you grind it, you're having to grind too deep. So if we poured 3/8, we'd want an ultimate glass roughly of a 1/4 inch up to a 3/8 glass. So this is a little fine, so we've waited maybe 5 to 10 minutes just to let the material slightly gel up a little bit, and then you just kind of uniformly broadcast it into the surface, and it'll on its own level down into it. So it's really up to you on how much or how little glass you want in the surface. You can get them in many different colors. You can get silver coated, gold coated glass, reflective mirror glass, which looks beautiful in these overlays. So when you're doing this for the installers, it is imperative that you do a mock-up so your designer knows specifically what you're going to get. This is just what I would consider a light to a medium broadcast, meaning we're going to see the natural color of the pigment, the Kendall gray that we put in the mix. So for demonstration purposes, we'll go ahead and broadcast roughly half of the panel, and we'll leave the other half without any of the glass. The timing is really crucial. If it's too late, it's not going to become embedded into the overlay. So timing's really, really important. Sometimes when you're doing aggregates, when you grind, a piece may become dislodged, and when we let this set up overnight and we do some grinding and polishing tomorrow, we'll talk about how you would address any pinholes. Basically, you would skim coat with the materials, but we'll talk about that during the grinding phase.